So there's like institutionalized self-enhancement in academia. Um, Let me explain, and then I want to talk about what to do, right? Like how to handle this institutionalized self-enhancement. So self-enhancement is the basic um, how a lot of people maintain their ego. Right, I think we all do self-enhancement to some degrees, but some are really a lot more than others, right? We would say somebody that, does a lot of self-enhancement, like, and is very overt with it, we probably say that they're narcissistic. And it's institutionalized within the academic game of self-promotion, so highlighting the things that are only positive and ignoring or going really silent on the things that are negative about yourself, right? And you'll see this a lot, like you'll really pick up on, as you live life, you do things, um, and this is true of all settings, right? This is not something that is unique to academia, but I want to talk about the institutionalized part of it. Um, is that, people will be very, very positive, and then when you ask them about something that is negative about themselves or some sort of weakness or that they view as weakness, all of a sudden it's like super quiet, right? Like you can hear crickets. Nobody or the conversation will change. There's like projection and deflection and all these kind of like human behaviors that we do. And once you're aware of this tendency to self-enhance and this tendency particularly to deflect against anything that is going to make you look negative, you really start picking up on it, because it's sort of protecting the sense of self that's inside, protecting the ego that's inside. And it could be to the extreme where you're like, oh my gosh, this person is very, very narcissistic, like extraordinary narcissistic when they do that. So what is it institutionalized in academia? It's because that we have to do these displays all the time, right? We're like bought and sold as an entity, right? So people are really we're traded, right? Like it's essentially the same thing as what you were in like a football player. It's not quite to the same degree, but in the same sort of thing where people are protecting the information about what's all negative about this thing, or you can think of like a used car market, right? People are not going to tell you the negative things about the used car. They're only going to tell you the positive things in terms of sales. And it's very much institutionalized because, everything is so public. People do not talk about their failures. They do not talk about the negative side of things. Like they really don't. Um, they don't talk about like the feelings of depression and loneliness and all of those things unless it's on behind closed doors. They'll be very hush hush about it and they'll slowly admit, yeah, I feel like that too. Um, but it's really not displayed. In fact, it's like for me to openly talk about this and all these channels, it's like taboo, right? Like I'm ruining some poor person's day on the other side right now by openly talking about these things. They're like freaking out. But okay, so what do you do, right? In this kind of environment, this institutionalized self-enhancement. Um, So for me, my strategy has always been go the opposite, right? Like I tried to play that game and it didn't work for me because it didn't feel genuine, right? Like, of course, I do some self enhancement. Of course, it hurts for me to talk about my weaknesses. But in fact, at least in my family, that was always really something that was the point of conversation often was like what was not going great, right? That was always something that was more interesting to talk about than what was positive. And whenever we sort of ran in with people, at least when I was, smaller, would be like, oh my gosh, these people all like talk about is how amazing that they actually are. And it's annoying. But what can you do is to, to some degree play the game, but also just be yourself, right? Like, don't get caught up in it. That, um, really work on that genuine being a genuine person. I don't like these terms of genuine and authenticity and all that kind of stuff because I think it's like used in often used in it as a weapon. Um, but try to really work on that. It's like I'm just gonna be a normal person and I'm gonna live my normal life. And you know what? So what if the self-enhancement is happening? I'm gonna tell you this, when you do this, it's probably gonna hurt your career, right? Like, uh, you will probably be further ahead if you don't do that in the short term. Now, I do believe if you are a genuine, helpful, nice person that tries to do well, um, if you survive, this is the trick, right? Like, if you survive in the career, it's a selection problem. Because if you are a nice, genuine, helpful person, it's much more easier to somebody to take advantage of you. Um, y like it just is. But in the long run, if you could survive with that as being like, I'm gonna be a decent human being, um, I think you'll just like yourself a lot more. Right? I think that's ultimately at the end of the day is like, I wanna still have a twinkle in my eye than being somebody that's like manipulative. Right? Like, that you see that clearly are manipulating the situation where you can just be like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have fun, love myself. Hopefully, I'm gonna love on other people, um, not in a gross way, but I'm gonna constantly do that as much as I possibly can." Right? Like, do that because life is just a lot more fun that way, rather than thinking about, like, how you can get ahead and strategize, and there's so many people that are like that. Like, I would say I would say at least half, and it sucks. It sucks as a life to be, like, strategizing, manipulating, and all that kinda stuff. It just ultimately sucks, um, and you don't have to do that, right? You could just be your normal human being self knowing that, yes, you will not get as far in life, but what is the life that you actually want to live? Right? Like, what does that look like to you? How do you want to feel? What do you want to be? All of those big existential questions, and you will be highly successful if you play that game. Um, a lot more successful, but is that who you really, really want to be? All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.